Dacha How, Washa Michael Larson, Washa Neiman Depunyu. Hello, everybody. This is Mike Larson from BBC IML, and this is a Moment with Mike. So, last couple of days, I talked a little bit about the car industry and where I got my start. But I thought I'd talk a little bit more about what's happened since then and what really got me into where I'm at right now. So, first of all, car business was a great place for me to learn about sales and how to get people to make that final move. And I was very good at it, but the hard close is what it really was all about. And unfortunately, I didn't see a lot of loyalty in the car business. I had a number of friends that lost their position because of CSI reports, and you were only as good as your last month. So I really decided I wanted to get away from that business. And so I did. And I actually went into the mortgage business, and my wife and I moved to northern Wisconsin. And and I thought that at the time the mortgage business was huge. I had friends of mine that had gotten into the mortgage business, and some of them were making $50,000, $100,000 a month in the mortgage business. This was before the big bubble burst of the mortgage business, and the interest rates had fallen so far that people on 30-year mortgages could cut their payments in half, and there was huge money that they were making. And that was still when money was kind of important to me. It was the most important thing to me, was making the money. So I got into that business, and that year was a very tough year. We only made about $15,000 that whole year, and what a struggle that was. That was really painful. I remember that feeling in the gut in my stomach, that just overwhelming feeling, like a knot in there that I couldn't get past, and struggled and struggled. I worked hard. I cold called. I had a few deals that I sold, but it was such a struggle. And I saw that the only way to make money in that business was in the B mortgages. So there's A mortgages, and there's kind of A minus, A plus, A minus, and then there's B mortgages. And B mortgages are a little bit less credit, obviously. But because they have less credit, they're more willing to accept whatever it is that's available to them. The A people, they know what they've got. So you can back end load some of those deals and you can make some money. But the problem with that is that they were treating these people with, this is where the crash happened with this, is because they were giving people loans that they really couldn't afford to people that weren't as creditworthy as they probably should have been. And I saw that, I saw that coming down the line. The way we were doing loans, I knew that eventually that bubble was going to burst. Plus, it was a tough year. So I got out of that business. And I was looking for another business to get into, and I took several interviews, and one of them was with this huge bank, and they offered me a really good position there. And then I went to a car dealership thinking about getting back into the car business, but I didn't really want to go there. And then I met a guy named Paul McDonald with the Miracle Ear hearing aids, and Pat McDonald. And I was really blown away by him. It was a great interview. I went in and interviewed with him. And, in my life, I've always been able to get a job. When I go in for an interview, I will get that job. I've always been able to do that. I'm very confident of myself. But I went in with this interview with this Pat McDonald. And the guy was just a great guy. And I remember being in that interview, and I was thinking about getting up and going. I wanted to think things over. And I remember what he told me was, I'm not going to let you leave until you take this job. So my wife happened to be out in the car. And he didn't even know that. He says, "Well, why don't you bring her in here?" And so I did bring her in, and we did agree to accept that job. It was the least paying of the three positions I was offered, but I was liked this guy so much that I took the position. And I used what I knew in the car business about closing. And I was very good at selling the hearing aids for that reason, because nobody had ever seen sales like that. And I was closing about 88%. In that first month, or first few months, I made money. And then the first month I was on my own, I had a huge month. I made more money than I had ever made in the car business in 1 month. And then the next month came, and I had closed 88%. They hadn't seen that in the hearing business before, somebody closing 88%. So the next month came along, and I was going along and selling very well. But then I had a huge chargeback of almost $3,000. And it was because I had all these people that returned, 20% of the people returned their hearing aids, because I had hard closed them. I got the deal, but in the car business, people couldn't bring their vehicles back. In the hearing business, there was a 60-day trial or a 30-day trial period. So I learned quickly that that was not the way to sell. And I think that's where the change in my life came. That bothered me that 20% of the people brought the hearing aids back. That said something about me. And that was when I had my epiphany about what was really important to me. And money to that point was important. And I decided at that point that I was going to help people. I never wanted to have that feeling again. I didn't want people to tell me by that 20% the return that I did a bad job. So from that point forward, I was in it to serve people. And I had made quite a bit of money before that. But from that point on, making money was a sidetrack, and I made a lot of money, but it was, the important thing was people, and I made more money than I ever did before. So what I had to learn, and this is where my 16-step sales process started. See, I understood menu selling. Menu selling is like fear of loss. You show the most expensive price, and you show them what they give up by going down in price, and people don't like to give up. It's psychology of selling. I was very good at that. I was very good at building rapport, and I was very good at convincing people to do things for my reasons. And that's why when they got home and they thought about it, and it really wasn't their reason, that they returned them. So I had to find out that's when I started finding out what their real reasons were. See, people are in a pattern. They're in this pattern in life. And I was one of them. I was in my own pattern of selling. And when something hits you, something big like that hits you, it creates pattern changes. Now, most often than not in life, we'll go back to that original pattern because it's meeting fundamental elements, which is another thing that I learned through all this process. But if you keep getting that pattern change over and over again, eventually you will go to something else. Or you get offered something that meets your needs just as well or better as that previous pattern was. And people, I learned from this, and what I learned from this was that if I went out and I bought something, I wanted to buy it for my reasons. I sure as heck didn't want to buy it for somebody else's reasons. And that was another epiphany I had was, gosh, why don't I just find out what their reasons to buy are? Rather than trying to force them into something that I think, why don't I just figure out what they want and try and supply that, or why they want it, and help them to that point. And that was, leverage is what causes pattern change. And you have to have a pattern change in order for somebody to purchase something. They need to change something in their life, and until they have leverage to change what their existing pattern was, they're not going to do it. But it has to be for their reasons. So that was when I created pain points and trying to figure out what pain points were. And then I had to relearn about commitment. And commitment was for their reasons once again. So I created a way to get the commitment out of it. And from there, you cannot get commitment. So you cannot get a sale. You cannot help people. You cannot help people change unless they're committed to change for their reasons. And then they have to be able to afford it, obviously. And you don't want to make this painful for them. And it has to be something that is comfortable for them. I'm in there to serve them. So I have to figure out what their actual budget is. And I got to fit something within their budget. And so understanding up front what the budget is and getting a commitment to that was what I had to figure out next. And then it's just matching what they want to create to their budget and going beyond that. See, people, what I learned is I was never inspired by what I expected. When something happened that I expected, oh, well, that really didn't inspire me that much. But when something happened beyond what I was expecting, wow, that was cool. That's what I wanted. That's when I was really bought into it. Well, geez, if I'm this way, they must be that way also. So I had to learn how to go beyond what they were expecting. See, if they give you a budget and their needs, and you match that, they're going to be ho-hum like I was. So I have to go beyond that, and that's what I had to learn. And it went very well. And then I got the opportunity to learn about Sandler training. And Sandler was what they called the submarine. Well, this was a new concept to me. But it really got into the psychology. First of all, finding out who the person is and breaking their patterns through this process. But it talked about going back and constantly closing parts of the submarine. And it's the process I teach now. And wow, what a concept that was. So I introduced that into my sales process, parts of the Sandler into my sales process, and it changed directions on how I was thinking. And so I started to understand what true fear of loss was, and some of the things that he thought that he had fit, or some of the ideas he had that fit right into my idea of serving people. See, if you're going to be good in this is what I learned, is if you're going to be good in this business, you have to be fully committed to what you're doing. You have to understand what you are offering is good for people. So you have to do whatever it is that's necessary to help them, because they're not, before they met you, they're not getting to the point yet where they're going to get that help. It's your opportunity to change their life for the good. So we have to be as good as we can possibly be. But Sandler talked a lot about our own personal mindset and having a good mindset. So we go in there where our passion overcomes their passion. Our passion to help them overcomes maybe their passion to not get help. And that's very important. And then there was other concepts in there. The only thing that I didn't care for in the Sandler was kind of the way it was laid out. There were some things that I wasn't getting as good of a result from it as I was hoping for. So I changed some things around, and that's what we do. That's what I learned through this process. Is most of everything that we do in life was learned a long time before we did. We did it. But when you go out and you figure out what's going on in all these different worlds and how other people are doing it, and then you test it in your own business like I was, you learn what works and what you have to tweak a little bit, and you take all of those experts that showed you that, and you turn it into something even better. And that's when you really serve people, is when you take your knowledge or the knowledge you acquire and make it better. That's how the world grows. That's how life grows. That's how we grow. And understanding that is very important. So I was constantly looking for new things to learn. And that was good and it was bad. What happened sometimes is I'd get so many things that I'd get a little frustrated with myself in the direction I was going. Or, you do so much learning and not applying, and you really haven't gained anything. Or you get so many ideas in your head, it's really hard to find one direction. And then I went to a seminar with Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is an incredible on stage. He's done incredible things. He's changed the lives of tens of millions of people. And what I learned from him is you have to stay with one subject long enough to actually learn how to use it. And I read all these books, hundreds of books, and I really studied what he had. And some of the things that were missing in the Sandler submarine, I got from him by influencing people and finding out about the pain, or away from pain and towards pleasure, which is something we all do, but attributing what they're currently doing to the pain and then offering them something changed that brings them to the pleasure, and it's a natural course for them. So once again, but the reason he did this was the same reason I was doing it. He wanted to change people's lives for the good. He wanted to serve people. And he always said, always go the extra distance. If you really want to serve people, you can't stop. You can't give up. You can't take the shortcut. You have to do what it takes to make sure you help them change their life. And that was the biggest thing I learned from him, and started to apply that in there. And as I applied these things, I went away from the hard close that I learned in the car business. And originally I had 88% closing business. When I went away with the closing, when I went away from that, I fell back around 50%. But I wasn't getting all the returns. I was having happier people. And that made me feel better about myself. I felt like I was serving people better. But this was the final cog in what I needed, was understanding how to read people, to influence people. And I went right back up into that 80% tile again, but this time my return rate was only about 6%, which is remarkable. And I felt like I was really serving people. And it changed my whole life. Everything, what I learned from all of this is leadership, for one thing, is about sales. You cannot lead people unless you understand how to sell people. And sales is all about influence. John Maxwell says, leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I take that a little bit further. Yeah, influence, but selling people. And, a good leader, the crazy thing about a leader is your ability to sell people on their own dreams and goals, to make them want to achieve their own dreams and goals. That's my definition of a true leader, is serving people and helping them realize their own dreams and goals and selling them on their own dreams and goals. Think about that. You have to sell somebody on their own dreams and goals so often, because that's belief system, BS, is what I like to call it. Our own belief system, our own BS gets in the way sometimes. So we have to sell people on their own dreams and goals. So understanding this process, the 15-step process, is really a life process. That's what it turned into for me. That happens to work for sales, because everything we do in life is based on this process. And that's what I learned through all of this, and being able to influence people in a tremendous way is a feeling that is hard to get anywhere else. And if you do it for the right reasons, that's what I learned, was doing it for the right reasons, people will reciprocate. and you'll make money, but the money you get at that point is fantastic because it came in the right way. And that's what I want to teach people. That's what I want to be able to share with people all around the world, is how to influence people to change their lives for a good reason. And that's the journey I'm getting on now. But that was kind of the process I went through with the hearing business. And then I left Pat McDonald. He died. Sad, sad, sad funeral. Probably the saddest funeral I've ever been to, because he touched so many lives. That was a hard funeral for me too. And in fact, to this day, I get a lump in my throat when I think about him, because he changed my life so much. He gave me an opportunity to really go after what I really wanted in life, and that was to change people, to help people, to change their lives and find tools to be able to do that with. And hearing aids were a fantastic tool to get people back into social understanding again, where the elderly have to stop going to social events anymore they used to enjoy, and get depressed about that because they can't be involved anymore. And to be able to change that, or allow them to be able to hear their grandchildren, was an incredible tool to be able to use to change people, and loved it very much. But when he died, that business changed a lot, and it just wasn't the same anymore. So I left and I went to AccuQuest Hearing Centers, and I took over a new territory. And first year applying these principles, the beauty of this was when people would come in to see me, their reaction when they left was they'd never seen anybody have so much passion about helping. And wow, talk about a great compliment to get. And because of that, when I was with AccuQuest, I opened a new territory. And the first year, we did well over 500,000 in sales. And I know I say it's not about money, but it is a measure. It's how we measure in this life where we're at. It's always part of a measure of money, and money is not evil, not at all. Money is just an amplifier of who you are. You will become more of who you are when you have money. In fact, getting a sidetrack here a little bit, one of the greatest statements I ever heard was, "You don't know how much you care until you're rich." So get rich, because you'll be able to help more people, but do it for the right reasons. So I went to AccuQuest, and we did 500,000 that first year from nowhere. And the second year we did over 700,000 in a town of 2,500 people and 10,000 people. It's just unheard of to be able to do those kinds of numbers. But it was caring about people, it was taking them through the process and allowing them to understand how important that really was to them, and letting them decide how to do it. And that's really leadership. What I was doing was leadership, not sales. And it was a life process that I was showing. I was taking them through their own life process to make a decision that was going to change their life and help their life. And it was incredibly rewarding. And this business changed also. They started to get to the point where they thought that we were spending too much time and wanted to get more people through there to make more money. And that was not the direction I wanted to go. So I left. And then I went with Miracle Ear once again in the same location, but it was a different owner now, and got together with him, and he wanted me to come in to be more of a sales manager. So I took the Minnesota. The things I had learned through those last 10 years about sales that applied to everything else in this life process. And I applied it to the people that were in the business, that were in this business, the employees. And there was only 3 employees at the Duluth office and Minnesota area. And when I started to apply these principles, they changed instantly, and started to understand my principles and gave it to the people, and immediately it started increasing. And within the 4 years, actually within 2 years, we grew from 3 employees in that part of the franchise to 19 employees. And in the 4 years I was there, the business 10x because the incredible repeat and referral business, because we were doing things differently than anybody else. We were helping people for their reasons, not for our reasons. And we would help each other for the same reason. So this process changed everything in that market. And also in the Wisconsin market and also in the Michigan market. So, you know, great success in life, I've found through these years, is always surrounded by big challenges. And the bigger the challenges are, the greater the success that is hiding behind it. And I had to go through all those tough times. I had to go through that year where I only made $15,000 in the mortgage business. And I had to go through the time when I was shocked and almost embarrassed and hurt by the fact that people returned their hearing aids to me when I thought I was doing them a service. I had to learn what real service really was. But going through all those tough times is what helped me create this incredible process that led to me now being with IML. And I have learned since the Miracle Ear business that it works in any industry. It's because it's about people. The greatest asset in the world is always people. I've heard great people, Simon Sinek, you might have heard him on TED TV, TED Talk, but he talks about business. And business will always be around as long as people are around. Business is infinite because of people. But businesses are finite. And most businesses will compare themselves and compete with other businesses. So they're competing with something that's finite. And because of that, they're always capping themselves. If we put value in people, if we serve people, that is infinite. If we bring people into our business and allow them to have their passion, and passion is where strength is, help them find the passion and use the passion, the infinite ability you're going to have in that business is fantastic. And then bringing in people when your clients, when your sales, when your customers, when your patients come in, finding their passion, allowing that passion to come out is infinite. And if that's what we focus on, is growing that constantly, there's no limit to where you can go. But if you focus on what your competitors are doing and trying to get to where they are, when they cap out, so will you. And that's how businesses fail. So just a little story about my years after the car business and how I got to where I am now. And this is what I want to teach. This is what I want to do. I want to change the world just a little bit at a time. And I am very passionate about it. It's so much fun to watch the change in people when they realize what their potential, well, when they first find out what their potential is, and then they actually realize it is incredible feeling. So I hope this finds you well. Have a super fantastic evening. I invite you to come to Inspired Motivated Leadership on Facebook. We also have inspiredmotivatedleadership.com. And you can reach me on Messenger. I have email, inspiredmotivatedleadership.com. If you have a subject you'd like me to cover, send me an email or send me a messenger. I did get one last night, actually. That was from Susan, and I'm going to come up with a subject. I'm going to go over that subject for you within a couple of days. Just have to think things through a little bit how I'm going to go about that. But I thank you, everybody, for joining me. I see there's a lot of people here. Lynn, Susan, Jason, Darren, Kendrick, and Jeff. I thank you for joining me. I will be on every night at 7 o'clock and a different subject every night. And we've got lots of things we offer in Inspired Motivated Leadership on Facebook on ways that we can all change and we can all make this world a little bit better. So have a super fantastic evening, and we will talk soon.